Here we go. We are live. Jimmy D and the Wolf. I'm Tim Wolf.
Hey.
We got Jimmy D and we've got our guest Ffej on here today.
What's up, Ffej?
Hey, you guys.
So
How's it going?
Going well, man. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah.
So you don't have any difficulty hearing me today, Jimmy?
No.
Good. Technology is working today, so that's good to know. So Jeff was just talking about how he in the housing market just got a new house and two houses built side by side. I don't want to speak out of turn, right? And the price.
No, go ahead.
The second one went up how much? They're identical.
Well, let's see what I could say. I think it's going to be about 18%, and they're identical houses. I was telling Jimmy, I was telling Tim a little bit ago. Yeah, they're right across the street from each other, but I picked this one because it was a couple months ahead of the other one, and the back deck faces the west. That's the biggest reason. If they'd have been transposed, I might have still got the other one, but I like. I'm not a big fan of mornings. It's a little throwback Navy trauma because I saw a lot of mornings in the Navy when I was in the Navy.
You a slow starter? I'm a slow starter, man.
A lot of hours that started with a 0 I saw in my life.
Yeah.
So I picked the one whose back door, I could see the sunset, and it happened to be the one that got done first. So anyway, weirdly, it's I just ran into my builder in the street. He'd stopped me and asked me about a couple of little things we're working on, and he's working on that house. And I said, I heard that you're in really tough shape. He said, yeah, this is going to go. Oh, I don't mind me. I guess I can say it because I bought it, but it's like 244.9 was mine, and that one's going to go 289.9. He said it's the same. It's just a 2-month lag, and he's working. I don't know. I can't.
Before I was, why is lumber gone up 4x? It used to cost about $10,000 for the lumber for the average family home, and 16,000 board feet. Is that what I just read?
Yeah.
And now it's 40,000, and for the same lumber if you can get it. And why? Well, is there less trees? No, it's because forecasting. According to the article I just read, they forecasted that there was going to be that COVID was coming and their demand would drop, and so they didn't make inventory. They maybe shut down plants or whatever, and didn't make inventory. Instead, the absolute opposite happened. Demand skyrocketed, and so they got caught short-handed. Got caught with their pants down, so to speak. And
boy, it's really something. And Sioux Falls, the other two markets that I know of, Sioux Falls and Aberdeen, I don't know about this extreme because I still can't quite process it because it's the exact same house 2 months later. So, but those markets, Sioux Falls and Aberdeen, there's hardly any houses for sale. That's the tricky part.
That's where we're at too, man. It's the first time I've ever seen it to where they're selling above listing prices.
Yeah, fighting for them. Like
glue for plywood. Terry says glue for plywood. So what is the? I don't know.
Well, I think what he's saying is some of the what Terry's probably getting at is the products upstream of some of the products that we need to build houses are probably in short supply as well. So say they have everything else. I think what he might be alluding to, they have every other thing they need for plywood except the glue. What you see? That's probably what he's got some knowledge of.
Probably a shortage of the glue
that
you need to glue the wood parts together. Yeah, it's just it's just amazing how you throw. I think you throw a stone in a pond and the ripples play out, and the COVID played into it on all these different things, certainly in the lumber, which we were just talking about, because
Yeah.
everybody thought there was going to be less demand. Instead, it was the opposite. And probably they had a shortage of workers. You know, if there was people out because they had COVID. And so, you know.
Well, it's crazy, man, that kind of off subject, but the same sort of thing, really. The Kentucky Speedway is about 45 minutes away from my house. And right now, there are thousands of brand new Ford F-150s at the Kentucky Speedway waiting on a computer chip.
Oh, my gosh.
For them to be sold. And in fact, I read this morning that the old ones are selling for just a little bit less than what they sold for new. The ones that are 2 or 3 years old. Because they're in such high demand, you know, all the electricians and plumbers, everybody buys F-150s and F-250s. And there's thousands of them right up the road right now waiting on a computer chip. They can be completed.
Oh, here, Terry's got a comment. 3/4 inch plywood is $77 a sheet. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And only 8 sheets available. Must be in Terry's local town. $77 a sheet. That's crazy, man. That's crazy. Anyway, so there's apartment and why are vehicles? I mean, I thought the trend was that sales of vehicles are going to go down over the long trend because everybody's going to be, you know, doing the TaaS thing, which is what was it? Transit as a service, meaning that you rent vehicles from other people and you're going to require less vehicles. TaaS. It was transit as a service. We did a podcast on that. So in the long run, they're saying that there'll be less cars required because, you know, our cars usually sit in the driveway or garage for 90% of the time. Or even if you drive it to work, it sits in the driving parking lot of your work while you're at work. So, you know, our cars are not being utilized. And so using, you know, computer technology and even self-automated driving, which is coming, I don't know how far away it is, but it will eventually be here. You know, less vehicles will be needed. Parking spots won't be needed downtown because it'll just pull up and pull away to go to the next job. So it's interesting that now you're saying that there's a shortage. They can't make enough vehicles. Is that what you're saying, Jimmy?
Well, they're just missing one tiny little component.
Yeah, but you said the used ones are selling for more as well.
Yeah, don't sound like crazy.
Well, yeah, because there's no new ones to buy, so
right.
Anybody that is ready to give one up.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah,
and I think too that there's the thing that they didn't factor in with this whole COVID thing was the emotion factor, especially in the housing market. I think the housing market's doing what it's doing because of emotion. I don't think that anybody could have figured that people would all of a sudden gravitate once you're stuck at home. Well, what's the most important thing? You've been sitting at home for the last 6 months and you realize, I like it here. And all of a sudden everybody realizes, well, I need a nicer house. I need a bigger house. I want to.
Yeah. Both sides of that if I'm going to be at home, I'm going to be at a lot nicer place, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or, hey, I like being at home. I think I'll get a nicer place.
Right. And it showed people, you know, the importance of home. I think that's what's fueling the housing market right now. I think it's emotion.
Okay. Well, I was just on a forum this morning on a, actually, interestingly enough, Tony Robbins dating site. So people who have gone through Tony Robbins events and single and wishing to mingle.
Oh, that sounds good.
This one woman posted, why do I always attract guys who are deadbeats and don't make any money and don't have any savings? And she was probably in her 40s. And there were like probably 50 people that responded. Some people were saying, well, that's because that's who you're putting your signals out to. That's who that's who you pay attention to. So that's your own, you're getting what you want. But one guy posted and he said that, I don't know if you've heard of Grant Cardone, Jeff, but Grant Cardone is a guy who been in real estate for 25 years, and he's branched out. He's got a training courses, and he actually has a TV show on Hulu. I haven't seen it yet, but I do want to see it. It's about where do you know what it is, Jimmy? Something millionaire, where he goes like if he lost everything and could build everything back up. And his mantra is, don't own a house, don't buy a house. It's the worst investment. It's stupid. I mean, he gets in your face. Grant Cardone I stopped listening to him because he has no empathy versus, say, a Tony Robbins or even a Gary Vee. Gary Vee is pretty edgy, but he's dripping with empathy. Grant Cardone doesn't. He doesn't grip with empathy. So, for example, just an aside, he also helps companies hire. And there was a video. He puts videos out like Gary Vee does, putting out a lot of videos every day. And he had like an almost assembly line. People were coming through with their basin, like when you go through the security at the airport. That same kind of basin. It had their belongings in there. I don't know what kind of a thing they were making them go through. And the guy got in front of Grant Cardone. The guy was really nervous, and Grant was standing there with his henchmen on either side of him, and he starts grilling the guy. And he says, and he says, "Let me see your phone." He grabs the guy's phone and he starts looking through photos. And he says, "Oh, there's some pictures of women here. Are you dating some women?" The guy said, "Yeah, I'm dating a couple women." And Grant Cardone says, Are you sleeping with them yet?" And he said, "No, not yet." And he says, "You're not a closer. Out of here. Next."
That's what Grant said to him?
That's what Grant said, yeah. He said because he wasn't sleeping with the women yet,
I see.
He was dating, he wasn't a closer. So Grant's pretty edgy. Barring any other ideas, maybe people want to wait till marriage. I mean, maybe they don't want to just be sleazy. I mean, maybe that's a choice, but not in Grant's world apparently. Anyway, so Grant says that you need to don't buy a house. And I've even seen him on live say, "Sell your house and invest it in my company." So he's got a little bit of an ulterior motive. But, so people had a big dialogue there, on a side dialogue underneath this woman's feed, where she was complaining about meeting guys that didn't have a house and didn't have any money or didn't have anything. And people were kind of debating as to whether or not you should even buy a house, and that it's a good investment or not. So what do you guys think of that? I mean, we're not on our topic for today yet, but
I think
we'll mosey on over there probably.
Yeah.
I think buying a house is the greatest investment that you can make. And I think he's dead wrong. And for somebody like me that came from nothing, the best way for somebody to go from poverty to at least middle class or upper class is real estate, in my opinion.
Well, of course, he's a real estate guy because he buys rental real estate. But he's saying instead of buying a house, pay rent for where you live. This is Grant's position. Pay rent for where you live and take that down payment that you would have needed to put down on your house and invest that in revenue-producing income. That's Grant's position. Now, I own a house. I mean, obviously, I don't subscribe to that. But I'm just saying that's Grant's position. And even Robert Kiyosaki, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's been around a long time. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He's had books out for a long time. And he's got influencer now as well. And he also says, he's always said, a home is not an asset. Now, he's never said don't buy a home, but he said don't think your home is an asset because it's not producing you any income. But it definitely is producing you other things. It's producing you security. It's producing you an emotion. It's producing you a lot of things like you were just talking about. So it may not be producing you income, but that doesn't mean it's not giving you other things.
Well, if it's paid off, it's producing you the income that you would be paying in rent.
True.
Yeah, I don't mind. I like owning houses. This is the fourth time I've owned. It's the first time I've owned two houses in my life, but it's the fourth time I've been. The other three, they were half mine, I guess. But
that subscription model is something that is cropping up on so many different things. I mean, 10 years ago, just one that pops into mind. QuickBooks, which is the accounting program that we use in our business. I mean, 5 years ago when I was still had my businesses, you bought QuickBooks. It was a box at Best, or what was the Office Max.
Yeah.
And you took the discs out, you put them in your hard drive, and you downloaded them on your computer, and that was it. You could use it until it went bad, or maybe you had to update your computer or whatever. Now you can't have that. That's what 5 years has changed. Now you want to use QuickBooks, you have to pay a subscription every month and utilize it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the subscription model has just become the rage on so many things. And they're saying cars are going to be subscription. People aren't going to buy cars. And so basically renting a house is the equivalent of subscription model for a house, essentially.
Oh, I see.
You know, that's basically what you're using it, you're paying monthly for it. So renting is subscription model, really. I mean, by definition.
And Airbnb is the next level of that, where they can just do it for however many days they want.
There you go. Yeah. You don't even have to have a lease, 1-year lease or whatever. And there are some people who like that. There are some people who go for that. But me personally, I got to have my house. I mean, I've always, ever since I was an adult, bought my first house when I was 25. And I've always wanted to have my, you know, where I live. Because the one thing about it too, once you buy a house, and if you have a fixed mortgage, you know, your rate doesn't go up if you have a fixed mortgage. But
I think most people have fixed mortgages these days.
But your rent's going
Not
up.
all.
If you're living in Nashville, you know the first 5 months last year in Nashville, the first 5 months, and this was during COVID. There was an article and where rental rates in Nashville went up 15%, 15% in the first 5 months of the year. That's an annualized more than 30%. Terry just made a comment. Let's see. Terry said, I would love to buy a house right now if something were available. When something comes available worth buying, it has 10 offers if you get the chance to be one of the offers. Yeah, that's the situation. Jeff, weren't you saying that the way it is even in Rochester too?
Yeah. It's I don't know. It's weird. Another little story. I mean, it fits right in here nice. It has to do with the house, but about this time 3 years ago, a pretty significant life change, and I was ready to sell my house. And so I called a realtor, and in 2014, we had this long, skinny garage. It's like 1.4% of a garage. Like, it was a long, skinny garage, and I took all but, I think you could park a smart car in there. Literally, you could probably squeeze a smart car in there, what's left of it. But the rest of it I took and made it's actually the bedroom I live in now. And I'm making room for my mom and my aunt to live with me at the time, live with our family at the time, 2014. So in 2018, right now, this couple weeks in May, I talked to the realtor and he goes, yeah, I could list it, but it doesn't have a garage in this neighborhood and this thing and that thing. And it's about 3,200 square foot. It's a cool house. I don't know if you saw my spiral staircase. That was on my bucket list earlier in my life. So I knocked that off of there. And anyway, it's a pretty cool house, pretty unique. But he was still saying that was a really huge drawback. Well, anyway, I got a call from him about 3 weeks ago. And he said, hey, a few people are interested in buying that house. If you'd like to sell it, I don't really in the mood.
So it's not a drawback today,
right?
Not anymore. He said, you got an alley. They don't care if the garage is there or not. They'll put one in there if they want one. It's totally, it's the polar. When I talk about bell curves, I was on like the 5 percentile to the left, how excited he was to sell my house. Now I'm 100. Now I'm at 95 or 100. Like, he's just really would like.
List it with him, yeah. So
yeah, I mean, I would have a bidding war on my hands in an instant. I mean, I don't have any idea. I think I let my mind go to what I think it might be worth, and it would probably go past that. But I'm not. Now I don't want. Now I'm in the group of people that don't want to sell their houses, which is pretty.
Well, before we go back to that, I want to
Sure.
interject the spiral staircase. Could that possibly have been to? I'm going to guess that submarines have spiral staircases, right?
No, they have ladders, polar opposite of that too. But the spiral staircase is just from somewhere. I saw it when I was really young, and okay. I'm a weirdo. Like,
yeah, I guess a ladder takes even less space and then you can move it. Okay, you can doesn't have to. So when you go different levels, you use a ladder on a submarine.
Yeah, a lot of those on the subs didn't move, but yeah, I mean, or like like those old time libraries in studies of the old homes, like ladder would slide or whatever. Right. But this, somewhere in my early part of my life, I picked up an intrigue with spiral staircases, and I don't always know exactly when. I just know if something influenced me when I was probably the age 3 or 4. That's how far my memory goes back. to 14, 13, 12, somewhere in those ages, maybe even as young as 11. But there's a lot of stuff that happened in my life that I got locked in on something. And I remember as a kid thinking, I cannot wait till I can go to the store and buy as much cheese and eat as much cheese as I want to. And I still have it. I tell you, I still have that compulsion. Like I go, oh yeah. And then back then there was this Colby, this chub of Colby that's, I think it was Longhorn, and they don't sell it anymore. It was in this wax. And I used to lust it. I know. I'm a weird guy. Anyway, that's why I put that spiral staircase in that genre. But the same idea. Something happened earlier in your life. It affects you in one way or the other, and then you set out later in your life to try to scratch that itch or keep it from itching, maybe something from itching.
Yeah.
So
well,
that's.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that's you weren't too far off.
So cancel culture. Let's get into that, our topic for today. And
so officially, before you get started, will you define it really well for me? What we're talking about? I think I have a really good idea what I think it might could be.
Jimmy,
but
you want to take this one, or I can.
It's the idea of if something is offensive, then we just make it go away. Basically, in a nutshell, that's the shorthand rendition of it.
If you have the power, if a person has the power to do it, then they make it disappear.
Right.
Sure.
I mean, people
if they can,
being,
to the extent they can.
And some people that get canceled need to be canceled. But I'll give you an example. And you know, I want to. You have to trudge carefully, but you're probably going to offend someone. we might get canceled. But
you're canceled.
Yeah.
You know,
okay, I guess we got to take it from here, Jimmy. No, I'm kidding.
You know, and I talked about this on a previous podcast. The whole NWord. And by the way, I sent an article over the weekend. The way of referring to that as the NWord, that came from the OJ trial. That was used in the OJ trial, and that became part of the American vernacular to refer to that word that can't even be said as the N-word. So that's an interesting factoid for you. So, you know, that word is still being used in songs. And so when these young kids sing songs that they listen to, and they're not often aware that they're not allowed to sing that because they're not African American. And there was a young girl who was 14 years old, and she put a Snapchat of her singing a song that had that in it. And it was Snapchat. Snapchat disappears in 24 hours. And somebody made a screenshot of it. You're not supposed to, I guess, but somebody made a screenshot of it and kept it. She's Caucasian, one of her black friends, and waited until she was 18 and graduated college and been accepted to Tennessee State, actually. And with her dream was to be a cheerleader. And she got accepted to the team. She was the national champion in her state, I guess, on the team. She was going to go, and I guess, Tennessee State is the national champion, and she was all excited about going to this great school for this great program. And her classmate, who had saved this for 4 years, pulled it out and waited for the right opportunity and posted on social media. And as a result, she was canceled. She lost her scholarship, and she actually pulled out of college. The college said, "You're not welcome here at our school." And so that's getting canceled.
Yeah.
There are many other examples too, where like maybe a celebrity does something and people will say canceled. And
well, since you jumped off the high dive, Tim, we're good. We're good now. It'll just get easier from here on. So we should be fine, I think. So is kind of I'll take a stab at the topic. Maybe no less controversial, but what's happening in Georgia? Laws passed companies doing something. Is that cancel culture too? Is that qualify for that? Is that what we're talking about, or is that a whole nother thing?
I don't think that in the general tip meaning of the word, I don't know that that applies to the, the
Okay.
laws being passed in Georgia.
Well,
So
I don't
anyway,
mean just it's a company saying I don't like this, so I'm
I
doing,
got you. I misread what you were saying.
yeah.
So Coke and some other companies
Yes, that.
saying that they don't want the laws, and so there are their boycott. The perfect one is what team was it pulled out their All-Star game? Was it baseball or a team pulled out their
Yeah.
game?
I don't know. Was that baseball All-Star game or
No, it wouldn't be All-Star because baseball's not on.
basketball game? Basketball? I don't know.
Maybe it's scheduled for this summer. No, it wasn't
Yeah.
basketball, but there was one of the major sports pulled an event out of Georgia because those laws were passed, and so then people are calling for a boycott of that company.
Well,
And
one thing
Coca-Cola
that
also
crossed my
objected to it.
I'm sorry, Tim, but one thing crossed my mind just thinking about, is there some broad way I could kind of describe what my feelings once I got the topic? You talked to me yesterday, I think, Tim, but I think overreaction or like extreme overreaction or something like that might be what I came up with a little bit. Specifically in Georgia, something that crossed my mind was, that part, did you hear part of that law was like that no more water in the lines or something? If you're standing in line, no one can offer you water. Okay, so people think, oh, this and that about that. But my feeling is oftentimes, maybe not oftentimes, but sometimes for sure, it's the opposite. You're trying to do something, you think you're really smart, so you do something, and it makes the opposite of what you wanted to happen. So, meaning like, and this is the best example I can get. I was with both of my grandsons 3 or 4 days ago at the same time, and so we are at one of their houses, and the other one I was visiting with, and they start playing with their toys, and this is as old as the hills. This is nothing new, but they're playing, and so one grandson's playing with something and the other one notices it. So he's got to play with that, right? And there's this big kerfuffle and Papa Ffej just got to try to, intervene or whatever. And before you know it, that one's solved, but there's another toy that catches an eye. And so what happens is nobody cares about the toys until one of the two of them cares about it. Then the other one cares about it.
Sure.
Right? So it doesn't matter what toy is. It's the fact that someone else, the other one of them, thinks it's cool. So then the other one has to have it.
Like human nature.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is so just take that water example. It would not surprise me to see big long lines of people with 12 or 6 packs of water, each one of them in those lines, because the word is out. If you get in a line, if there is a line and you get in one, no one's going to bring you water, right? I'm just saying sometimes some things have this mysterious way of figuring some stuff out too, without a big overreaction. And that's not saying left or right or any kind of anything else. Whatever the extremes are, if they're not dangerous and they're, it's like almost like we've gotten where it's illegal to offend people. Anybody.
Well, I think that's where it came about. Jimmy, do you remember the topic conversation we had when it was suggested that we have this as our
It was that conversation about the girl that went to school at Tennessee.
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned it the last time I was on, just briefly, I think.
And so and then cultural appropriation is kind of in that same thing. It's a different topic, but I put it in the same category in my brain. It's how our society is changing. So, Me Too movement, a lot of men were canceled because of things they did previously. And, I know what it was, man. I remember what it was. No, it was something different than that. It was because there is a Jimmy played. Can I say this, Jimmy? Jimmy played at a place that is a beautiful building, beautiful estate. That's what we were talking about.
I remember.
Estate that was a plantation.
Yeah, I won't say the name of the venue, but as long as I can remember growing up, it was such and such plantation. And that's what it was back in the day.
Yeah.
And now it has a different name because if you say the word plantation, it's like, and I kept saying it at the venue and kept getting corrected to the point where people were getting mad at me. I'm like, look, it's what it was for the whole time I was growing up for 30 years.
You know, so Ffej, that I am very sympathetic to the plight. I mean, I'm a Black Lives Matter supporter.
Yeah,
I believe that our African Americans have had systemic racism, and I know there are people that don't think it's there, but I mean, like the story you had when you were with your teenage friend, and cops pulled him over, and he was scared to death, and you're like, why are you scared to death? Right, Jimmy?
Yeah.
So until we're black, you don't know what it's like to be black in America.
Sure.
So I'm all about reversing that, but the slog is hard, and how we change our thought processes. Basically, this is about slavery. Plantations were built on the backs of slavery. Many of them were built by slaves, and so that's why that name has changed, and it's no longer okay to call it a plantation. It's got to be called something else. And even now, I've heard of people that were, when they were younger, and they went to a prom at a state that was a plantation, and kind of did a antebellum kind of thing, and now there's pictures on their Instagram from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, and now they're having to take that down, or they're getting called out for that because it wasn't an issue then. And now it's hard to go back and reverse what was done, but we move forward and we look forward. Hey, I have an example. It's somewhat related, but when my dad was, when we were a kid, and my dad was an incredible negotiator, very shrewd negotiator, and he would say, "I'm going to Jew him down," and I didn't know any Jewish people. This is honest to God truth. I was a hick farm boy in rural South Dakota, very unsophisticated, extremely. I was barefoot. A neighbor told me at my dad's funeral that I was barefoot. Into my teen years, I would be farming. I'm lucky I still have all my toes because a lot of machinery and stuff. And he remembers me sitting on the running board of the truck, pulling cactus out of the bottom of my feet because I was walking barefoot. Why would I possibly do that? I mean, it wasn't we weren't poor that I couldn't get shoes. Anyway, so that was, picture that, hillbilly guy. That was me. So I didn't understand. And my first job with DuPont, and I became good friends with a Jewish guy, and we're still friends. We're friends on Facebook. He might even be watching this. I don't know if he'll remember this. Sam, I won't say his last name, but I'll never forget it because I was so shocked because the realization, we were talking after work or something. We were hanging out and buying stuff online from an ad, used or something, and I said, I'm going to try to Jew him down. And it was dead silence. And he looked at me, and with the most pain in his voice, he said, very quietly, he said, why do you have to use that word? And I looked at him dumbfounded, and it clicked in my brain that was he referring, I thought Jew was a verb. I didn't know that it was referring to Jewish people. I thought it was a slang verb. I didn't realize it was referring to Jewish people. And I'm so embarrassed by that, even to this day, that I can remember that. I was driving, I can remember that moment, because when the realization that what I had been saying was hurtful to other people. And so, it's going to be something like that to get rid of things that have been going on, and, using the NWord and that sort of thing. Cultural appropriation and the plantations, all that sort of thing. I understand what they're saying, but on the other hand, it's when you got 14-year-old girls singing a song that's on the radio, it seems unfair. I mean, you're 14-year-old, you don't understand the meaning of that. It's a popular song. I'm going to sing it. So I see both sides.
It's a slippery slope.
It is a slippery
especially
slope
for young people.
Yeah.
But it's a big reason why it's happening is because all of a sudden you know, forever and ever and ever, it was like most people aren't really racist, and most people really aren't. I mean, I believe that in my heart, that a lot of people will hear something said when they're younger and they think it's okay and they get older. But as far as like treating other people bad, I don't think most human beings are inherently racist. It's just, you know, you hear things or you're taught a certain way. And all of that now with younger people, they're really not that way anymore, because young people are really, really smart anymore. So they don't hear something that, you know, if they have a uncle that's dropping an M-bomb or something like that, they know that that's not cool at a really, really a tender young age. And so there's all this force that comes from it, of this change. And with that, the opposite, the other end of that spectrum is girls like this girl whose collegiate career got destroyed.
Yeah.
From
And then another one, there was a Christian influencer who apparently I was just reading about. She's fallen bad times because she had this girl stop apologizing. She had this book. I guess there are women that love this woman, especially Christian women in the church that followed this woman. And she had girl wash your hands or something. She had a couple of books that were successful, and she presented that her marriage was, you know, passionate, and she would talk about makeout sessions with her husband and all this kind of stuff. And the news was that now they're getting a divorce. And it's kind of a shocker, especially in the conservative Christian world, because they were presenting as a way to have a great dynamic sexy relationship with your husband and all this sort of thing. And at the same time, she's getting hit with, this blows my mind, because the title of her books were Girl, Stop Apologizing, Girl, Wash Your Hands, or something like that. So it was Girl. And some black women are saying that's cultural appropriation. So using terms girl and cis between women, that's a black thing, and white people shouldn't use that. Black women are saying that. It was an article. So then I'm like, whoa. I mean, what if I say, you go girl? I mean, should I stop saying that? You know,
No.
It makes me wonder. I don't know. I mean, am I allowed to say that? I'm not black and I'm not a girl. So I just had the thought process. I'm not judging anyone. I'm just saying, will somebody get angry? And like I was at First Watch and I was paying, you know, and they've got their little diamond, it's a restaurant, and you've got their little diamonds there, or your circles were supposed to stand. And there was a person paying, and there was no one in the circle behind them. But there was a black man who was standing there with a bag of a takeout. And I don't know what went through my mind, but I didn't think he was in line to pay. So I went and stood the circle behind the woman in front. And then when the first woman got done, he took his receipt and he handed it to the woman. And I remember thinking, is he cutting in front of me? And of course they know me there, and they said, oh, Mr. Tim's next. And the guy went ballistic, an older black man. He went absolutely ballistic. What made you think that I wasn't here to pay? And went off, and I'm sitting there, you know, and I'm like, I'm sorry. You know, normally, typically would say, hey, I was here first. And you're like, oh, okay. But he lost it. He went ballistic. He was really angry. And I was checking myself and saying, did I actually think that maybe he was a delivery guy and he wasn't eating here? Did I have that subconscious bias in my mind? I'm not sure, you know, because he's African American. Is that possible?
Well, not to mention he's just waiting for somebody to say something, gauging by his response. Would you think
he was standing there holding the takeout, which usually when they come to pick takeout, they don't pay or anything. They just pick it up and they go, you know, because like Uber Eats or that kind of thing. Did I think he was doing that? What went through my mind? Because, you know, we have millions of things that go to our subconscious, and our conscious only can register like 100 of them. So what possibly went through my mind to think that I could jump in front of him? Did I judge him by his race? I can't be sure that I didn't. because of predetermined biases. It's just like when you see, I don't know, a woman in something that is doing something that is usually male dominated, and and then she tears it up. I mean, that's a predestined bias. Does that make me misogynistic? Does that make me racist? That's a question. I don't think so, but I think we have to continually, when we're used to seeing a certain kind of person doing a certain thing and someone else starts doing that, it's going to take some getting used to that.
Absolutely.
Even, heck, even Spud Webb. What if you saw Spud Webb? 5'2". How tall is Spud Webb? NBA basketball player.
5'7", 5'8".
Yeah,
No. He was 5'2", 5'4".
You're thinking of Muggsy Bogues, I think.
Muggsy Bogues. Muggsy Bogues. Muggsy Bogues was like 5'2".
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
And if you met that guy and he'd say, I'm an NBA. What do you do? I play in the NBA. And you'd laugh. Say, no way, man. I'm taller than you. Preconceived idea. I don't know if the guy ever made an all-star, but he had a long career. He was good. So, I mean, I'm just trying to make an extreme example of how we have preconceived ideas and how does that play into our subconscious.
And we're not even aware of most of them.
Yeah, I think the first really legitimate step is admitting that let's put it back on the bell curve. You're going to find people on the extremes. I don't have any preconceived biases any sort. And then probably a slice that say I don't have any control. I'm already set in cement, right? I can't make any adjustments. Like that's the way it is. Not only the opposite of saying I don't have any, they say, yeah, that's all I have, and I'm not doing anything about it. And then in the middle is where all the work gets done on anything in life. And that's, oddly enough, takes people, I think, like us three and others that are willing to say, I probably do have biases, right? But then, okay, so I'm kind of goofy and weird. So sometimes when I listen to things pop up in my mind, examples that are more pictorial, that help me understand what it is I'm listening to or what I'm trying to comprehend from conversation. So what popped up while you guys were talking is this game from when I was young, and it's a steel ball, and then there's two little rods, and you could start with the rod on one end, and there's like 7 holes, and you try to try to do that rod so the ball rolls down to the last hole. But if you do the rods too much, it just falls into.
I know that game, yeah.
Okay, and if it falls into the first hole, you go. It's like, you numbskull, whatever. It has these things, right? If you make it all the way, you're like champion of the world, right? It gets better. Starts out bad. The little sayings that this game says about you, all the way to champion, and somewhere, you're above average or whatever. Okay, so you take that game, and that's sort of what we're doing here. You go too far one direction, you don't make any progress. It's just over. A conversation, a direction one would hope for the country to go in, all that kind of stuff, right? And then, so on the extremes are these different ideas of people. In this example, I don't have any biases. Oh, that's all I have, and I'm not doing anything about it. I'm who I am. I'm carved in stone already. I'm not doing nothing. And the other ones say, no, I'm my own person. I don't get influenced by anybody. But the truth is, we all do to one degree or another. And in order for that ball to make it, let's say, whatever topic we want to pick for, cancel culture is the big topic, but any subtopic, specific one, we're talking about politics or the ones that you brought up about the 14-year-old, all of that. In order to make progress from that, there can't be any extreme. It's slow and tedious, and sometimes the ball has to go backwards because you went too far too quick, and you lose progress. But that doesn't necessarily mean you've lost. It feels like you're losing progress, but you got to bring the sticks back, regroup, re-engage, and go back at it. And then the ultimate goal of getting that ball. And I didn't get that ball in there very many times. I mean, compared to how many times I tried it, that ball would spin, and you could feel it almost coming. That ball would start spinning backwards instead of forwards, and then drop. And then you had to decide you want to play that stupid game again, or
Perfect analogy, man, for where things are at.
It is, you know.
so. It's autopilot doesn't work. I don't know if it ever did, but it doesn't work right now.
Think about Me Too. Sorry, Jimmy, go ahead.
No, that's it.
Think about the Me Too movement, and how much that has done. And I remember when it first came out, and these guys, this Weinstein and just horrible things that he got away with. And I'm glad that finally had to pay the piper. So that had to happen. But there was a time there where, relatively, there's a spectrum. And I would agree with what Matt Damon said. There was, at the time, everything was thrown into the same bucket. People that were drugging and raping people, like Bill Cosby, all the way to somebody that maybe slapped somebody in the butt that was a coworker. And in my mind, there's a huge difference between those things. Not neither of them are right, but to put the severity of it. And Matt Damon, Mr. Nice Guy, he's kind of the same thing with Tom Hanks. Matt Damon has the actor. He has the presentation of being Mr. Nice Guy. His wife is a non-industry person. He's just got a reputation of being very solid. And I remember he had a tweet that he put out, and he made the point exactly what I'm saying is that let's not conflate the guys who are raping children and drugging women and with the guy who maybe with a friend slapped somebody's butt, or I don't remember the exact, but he's saying there's a spectrum. And he was crucified on social media. He was crucified. He literally had to issue a huge apology. And that's, so that's going the other too far. I feel. Progress is being made, but let's be realistic about it. And maybe there'll be 5 million comments on this.
One thing I've noticed, I think I could say this, that when topics that have been put off, right, and pushed down and ignored and all that finally come to light, maybe it's just the inertia of the topic bursting forth that naturally takes it past a good spot, just because of the velocity of the topic being addressed for the first real time to start with. Maybe it's not as unhealthy as it is. Maybe it's more normal, and then it's up to everybody to pull it back to where it rightfully needs to go. Back to the analogy I made with that game. Like you can go and go a lot of progress, but there's a point where you realize, okay, that's a little bit too far, too fast. It's going to make it to the third from the last hole, but on this pace, it's going to break down, right? And so maybe it's just the inertia of some of these topics that should have never got that bad to start with.
100%, yes.
And then it just, and then it's up to all of us collectively as a society to say, well, thank goodness that topic brought to light. Where is it healthiest to land, right? And then you're going to have the people that speak out, hey, I think this is getting a little out of hand, and then other people are going to say, hey, we've been waiting a lot of years for this. Like, they don't want, they're so glad that it's on the topic. And I'm just saying, back to one of my original thoughts about the water and stuff, if we as a society stay fair with ourselves and each other, maybe the landing spot will be showed to us.
We aren't there yet. There was
the
same article that the same group. I read the New York Times on Sunday, and there's an article in there about a kid about your son's age, Jimmy. I think he was 14, and he just having a crisis because in school the culture is the girls can say and do anything, but anything he does, he gets pushed back on him as being, anti-Me Too. And he's found a group called, I don't know if you ever heard of Incel, INCEL. Have you heard of that, Jimmy?
No.
There's a group of guys called Incel, and they are angry. And the in stands for involuntary, and the cell stands for celibate, involuntary celibate. And so there's a whole group. You can find them on the internet. I mean, different chat rooms, I suppose Reddit or whatever. And these guys are angry at women because they believe they don't want to be celibate, but women, they're not attractive to women. They can't get a woman. Maybe they're the guys that game for 24 hours on their computer, and, kind of nerdy. Women aren't attracted to them, and they're angry at women, and they sometimes turn violent. And this kid is already thinking that he's going to be an incel, and he's only like 14, because of the way he gets taunted and the way it's presented in the classes, that this girls can do anything and the boys can't do anything right. And, it was a tragedy. I mean, reading the article almost made me want to cry. This poor kid. He can't find his way in the world. I mean, how does he become a man? How does he become the best man, the man that God made him to be, when he's being exposed to that, and that's what he's seeing at the tender age of 14? And so these are things that have to be worked through. I mean, these are things that have to balance out at some point.
Yeah, I think I might have let it slip out what I said. Autopilot doesn't work. Another example coming to my mind, when I used to drive the submarine, and the fairwater planes and the stern planes. One was the depth. You were in charge of the depth of the ship and the direction of the ship, and the other one was just strictly the bubble, the up bubble, the angle of the boat. And generally speaking, we might travel around at 1 or 1.5 degrees up bubble for the most part. And so, but that didn't take, there was no time off. Like a few people walk from the engine room up closer to chow in the middle of the boat, and whatever you were doing isn't working anymore, because what was a 1.5 degree up bubble, if you don't make adjustments as time is going on, you'll be something besides that. So it's a like the other game, the concept was you get the ball in there and it stopped, right? Oh, we did it, we accomplished it. But all kind of at the same time, it's also what we're talking about is kind of like, it's always indicative. It's always you need people willing to always try to improve and come to the middle part, juicy part, where these solutions exist, and being dogmatic and closed-minded and emphatic, those kind of things. That's what I think is in common with not very much success in some of these areas, because otherwise you're just slamming from one extreme to the other. And I'm finding all the good solutions to anything that's ever been solved is in the middle. And it's hard, and it's kind of almost attention to detail nonstop kind of thing.
Yeah, I'd agree. All right. Well, we've certainly gone longer than our normal time. Unless you guys have thoughts that you want to share, you're burning in your heart that you want to share.
Always a treat.
Yeah.
No, I'll just throw this out. Since I saw you last, I got a really bad infection in my nose. Really bad. I mean, it was bad. Like, I was so thankful I was in Minnesota for the most of that time, and I could wear a mask. Like, oh man, these masks I really like. Now, upon further review, these masks are a real blessing. But growing up, two things: my right ear is lower and sticks out farther, not like Stephen Colbert level. Like Stephen Colbert got his one ear on a Friday late, and the next one Monday, early on the Monday. It's a whole different species of ears for him. Mine's not like quite that bad, but my right ear's lower and sticks out farther, and then my nose, like, it's a lot better now that I have glasses, I think. But I mean, I spent time as a younger man searching magazines, looking at guys' noses, But now this happened to me, and you know what? I kind of like my nose. It's not that bad compared to the little detour that it took. So
Hilarious, Jeff.
Hilarious. Yeah, it's who would have known? Who would have known that would end up kind of a blessing? Because I'm finding something else to be complained about from now on. Besides that.
Yeah.
So.
All
Anyway,
right. Thank you so much for hanging
I'll
with
see you
us.
guys.
If you're seeing this on replay, and leave us comments. Let us know what things you'd like us to talk about. And we appreciate you. Thank you for hanging with us. We'll see you next
I appreciate
week.
you too. See you, Jimmy.
See you, brother.
Next
Bye,
week,
Tim.
7 o'clock every Tuesday. So
Peace.